relevant, reliable, and researched. This is Experts on Call, the show focused on delivering leading-edge news and information on today's most beneficial products and services. This is Experts on Call on AM 650.
Welcome back to the program. We're talking roofing on this particular episode of Experts on Call with Sean Lang, president of Interprovincial Roof Consultants. Along with producer Dwayne Bishop, I'm Sterling Fox. And Sean, your patience is laudable on today's program, because I know I'm talking about stuff that you had to learn even before you went up the ladder for the first time, those many years ago when you became a roofer in the first place. But some of the fundamentals about roofing, it's an area in which the typical homeowner just doesn't know anything. Mm-hmm. So you've been very patient in explaining the two basic types of roofing systems, the sloped roof versus the flat roof. Mm-hmm. And of course there are subcategories in each, mm-hmm. but those are the two general headings of types of roof. So let's talk about the roofing industry, because again, this comes as a bit of a jolt to, I'm sure, a lot of homeowners. You know, some guys come along and they put the roof on, and then the landscapers come, and then I move in.
Yeah.
It's a little more sophisticated than that.
Yeah, it is quite sophisticated, and that's something that I didn't even realize until I got into the consulting end of the industry, is how sophisticated our business is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think it's just my boss going out and getting us a job to work on, right? And in a lot of cases, that's all it is. But there's actually a whole association involved, and a cooperative effort amongst the roofing contractors and consultants and suppliers and manufacturers that bring the end product to the client. There's roofing contractors that operate on a very small scale, you know, two guys in a truck sort of thing.
Right.
And they're the guys that are going to go and pull off a house in a couple of days, and then they'll move on to the next house. They're not the guys that are going to take on a full strata.
Right.
They're not the guys that are going to take on a warehouse building.
Mm-hmm.
Those are going to be the larger companies that have the equipment and the tools and the large workforce, 50 guys that are employed, maybe 100 guys that are employed at their firm. And the difference is that if you own a building that is in that scale, you want to make sure that not only do you have a decent roofing contractor that has the ability to get the job done in a timely manner, but that you're using the right materials on the building, you have the proper advisors involved in the building, consultants like us,
mm-hmm.
and that everything is being covered and done under the most optimum conditions that can be done.
Let me interrupt you there for a second. What would be the best time for either the owner of that warehouse out there in Port Kells, mm-hmm. or the person in that new home in Langley to contact a consultant? Okay, I want this thing done right. Mm-hmm. I want to involve myself and my money in every step of this phase of my dream home. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to the roofing, I'm not just going to farm it out to some guy. I'm going to call a pro. I'm going to call that guy I heard on the radio at Interprovincial Roof Consultants. Yeah. What's the best time to be brought in, Sean, on a project for you?
When you don't think you need us.
Okay.
And I say that because all too often it's when they know that we're needed, meaning that the roof is leaking and I need something done now. Mm-hmm. Can we get a roofer here tomorrow? And I think I mentioned on the last show that we actually had a client who wanted to have us come and write a specification for his house, and he wanted the roofers to meet there at the same time, sort of thing, thinking this was going to happen very quickly.
Right.
We'll get everybody there, we'll get this happening tomorrow, and I'll have a new roof by Wednesday. And it turns out there was some major issues with his building, to the point where an engineer had to be brought in, and the whole project got deferred, because you just simply cannot get into it that quickly and expect to get a good result. So what people should realize is that the more preparation, the more time that you can give committed to that project ahead of time, the better the end result's going to be. We can design a specification that's more suited to your budget and to the building's needs. We can have the time to look at the needs of the building and assess that. Mm-hmm. We then know when to put the job out to tender and have some flexibility in that, so that we can meet the best times in the market. The roofing is a market, and it's largely dependent on commodity prices, because a lot of roofing products are oil-based.
I was just going to say that. We're just whining and wheezing and complaining about gas being significantly over $1.50 a liter. Now, there's no fun heading into summertime, but you know, a lot of roofing products are made of petroleum byproducts.
Absolutely, yeah.
So if they have a war somewhere in the world where the oil is produced and the price of oil goes up, that means your roofing materials are likely to go up as well as the tank of gas.
Well, as you know, that oil prices are rising and falling at really odd rates, and nobody can explain why. You know, gas pump prices are ridiculous. But anyways, it is directly affecting the roofing market. So that has to be watched, as well as the weather, the time of year. So if you were to tender a project in midsummer, let's say in mid-August, when the roofers are very, very busy, and they have lots of work on their books, it's the busiest time of the year for them.
It's also the driest time for this little corner of Canada.
Absolutely, and of course that means it's the busiest time.
Yeah,
for them.
absolutely.
So what do you think they're going to do with the price that you're asking for? If they've got tons of work, they'll just throw up a nice high price. And if they get the job, that's fantastic.
Sure.
They're going to make really good money, but they're not desperate for it. So you're going to end up paying more. And you're going to end up signing a contract with them for a higher price, but that doesn't mean the project's going to be done in August because they're busy.
Right.
Now it might be done in October, November, or even December, depending on the size of the project and how busy that roofing contractor is. Now you're into the rainy season.
Right.
So now you're paying more for your project, and it's being done at the worst time of the year.
So all of that could have been at least somewhat avoided by dealing with professionals in the first place who would ensure that once the strategy had been determined, here's what we want.
Good work.
And then you recommend here's how to get what you want.
Yeah.
And let me recommend a few companies that I'll put this project out to tender, and we'll select the best bid.
Yeah.
And you're not going to, two guys in a truck aren't going to be on that tender list, are they?
No, they're not. And I have to explain to people a lot why not to use the two guys in a truck. And they always, well, it's cheaper. And they're going to install the same thing, and they've been roofing for 20 years, and it's the same products. The other guys, you know, why can't I do? Well, there's a lot to that. I mean, they don't want to be inspected, those guys. Those two guys in a truck, they don't want to be inspected because they're going to take all kinds of shortcuts to get the roof done for cheap.
Right.
There are some basic costs to a roof system. The material costs so much, right? Now, having said that, some of the suppliers offer better rates to the larger manufacturers, the larger installers, the larger roofing contractors, because of the volume that they buy. So if you look at the industry, you have the let's go from the very beginning. You have the asphalt suppliers and the reinforcement material suppliers and the granule suppliers that are going to supply the product to the manufacturers of the roofing products.
Right.
So they're commodity-driven pricing there.
Yep.
So the manufacturers have to buy that product at the right time and everything, and they make their selective purchases and deals with those suppliers to get the product to make the material. The material is made, and then it is sold to the suppliers, who want to buy at the right time based on all these other factors. And then so they buy their product, and they now want to offer it for sale to the roofing contractors, who are going to in turn sell it to you as the client, the end user.
So you're about number 5 along that list of how things get handled.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the commodity portion of it is in the beginning, where you're buying the raw asphalt and the raw materials to make the product. So that's where the commodity comes into play, and the prices are affected at that point. That trickles up to the supplier, who is buying it from the manufacturer, who now has to buy it for a higher price because the oil costs more and the bitumen costs more and so on. So the pricing is driven that way. Now when you go from supplier to roofing contractor, you're dealing with volume purchasing, in the sense that the large contractor who has 100 men is installing a lot of roofing. He's buying a lot of that product from that supplier. He'll get a better price.
Absolutely.
He can pass that better price down to you. So now you've got a better contractor who has more equipment and better trained men, larger resources, a larger facility,
and better prices
and
on
better
the
pricing to offer to you. So you're actually getting the best of all the worlds there.
So when you're organizing a bid, and you have your list of reliable, proven, successful contractors, you'll assemble a list of 4 or 5 companies, and every company on that list is perfectly capable of doing that job.
If we've selected everyone, yes. In some cases, the owners will insist that there's a certain individual contractor added to the tender.
Right.
It happens on stratas quite a bit, where one of the owners, his brother's uncle's mother, has a son who has a friend who owns a roofing company, and they want to be on the bid list. And that makes it tough, because now you've got two guys in a truck bidding against these larger companies that are real serious players, really serious contractors. And these two guys, in a bar one day decided to start a company up because they both own a hammer, and now they want to compete. And their price comes in at $2, and the major contractors are at $200,000. And how do you justify that? So it becomes a very long discussion at that point.
Interesting. Let me take a quick break here. Our guest is Sean Lang, president of Interprovincial Roof Consultants, online, by the way, at iprc.ca. You might want to have a look at the website while we take a quick break here on Experts on Call on AM 650.
Delivering relevant and beneficial consumer information. This is Experts on Call, and there's more still ahead on AM 650.